What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at more games from a secret console we are not naming, running on your Retroid Pocket 5. So let's get started. Now, before we begin, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to my channel. It really helps me grow so I can keep on bringing cool content for you guys. And with this said, let's jump on to game number 1. The first game on the list is Freedom Wars Remastered. I used to play this back on my PS Vita, and now we're able to play it here. Oh man, I just got a new sentence here. So the premise of this game is that you are a prisoner that has a 1,000,000 year sentence. You had to clear that sentence up by taking missions and contributing to your panopticon. This is the very beginning of the game, and I have only done basically like the tutorial where your character loses consciousness and it has amnesia. Then you get to select your character, and from there on you continue with the story. The game runs pretty smooth on here, but you can see there's a few graphical issues here and there, like those black bars that we're seeing right here. Not sure what that is. I think that has to do with the door. But other than those few minor graphical glitches, the game seems to be running well. One cool thing about this game is the fact that everything is in English. The original version of Freedom Wars was in Japanese, and you only had subtitles. And I believe there's a feature where your accessory is able to say whatever you want by using the voice synthesizer, a feature that was not present in the English version of Freedom Wars for the PS Vita. At least in this area, I can see that the game is keeping a steady 30 frames per second, which is actually really nice. We can see more of these graphical glitches. I was not aware of this before. I ran this game yesterday and I had not seen this. I guess this is due to the area. Who knows how this is going to perform once we're in actual battle. Here we're in a little bit of combat. It seems to be keeping the 30 frames per second steady. I don't see it really dropping, which is kind of nice. But we're still seeing a lot of those graphical glitches. Let's get these guys out of the way and let's move forward with the next area. Oh, so we finished the mission. Now we're going back to the cell. So the game seems to be running at a pretty steady frame rate, which is really nice for a new game. We did not fight any big enemies or we were out in the field during battle, but the game seems to be running well so far. In the very beginning of the game, when I started this game yesterday, it did crash on me twice, and that's when I had to change some of my configurations. This allowed me to move forward in the game because it just kept on crashing on me. So who knows how the game is going to perform later down the line, but it's nice to see that this game, even though it was just released, is actually working nice on here. Alright, on to the next game. The next game on our list is a cyberpunk game called Anno Mutationem. This game I used to play it back on my PS4 and then eventually on my PS5, and this is really cool because it's a 2.5D world, but it is open world. I really like the perspective of things on this game. The premise of the game, you're basically looking for your brother that has not replied to your emails in a while. This game took me a little bit to get working correctly because it just kept on crashing. Also in the beginning I did notice that the intro cutscene was just showing like static, and the game will keep on crashing after that. But after getting the right configurations, I was able to get this working, which is kind of nice to see because I really like this game. I played beginning to end, but I believe it may have multiple endings, so I will definitely like to replay this and give it another go. So far the game has been keeping a really nice FPS above 40, which is unexpected given how many problems this game was giving me originally. This is the very beginning of the game, so I don't believe I will be able to showcase any combat here, but the game has pretty cool battles and you also fight like really big monsters. The game is open world and you will eventually unlock more of the city as you progress throughout the game. So like I said, it's really nice to see this running on here. Alright, on to the next game. The next game on our list is a game called Outer Wilds. This game runs extremely well on the platform. I was actually really surprised how smooth this game was running on here. I haven't really gotten past this part in the game, but from what I can tell, you're basically trying to get off this planet and going into space to explore other planets. I guess that was a little bit repetitive of me, but the premise of the game is space travel. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game, and the game keeps a pretty steady frame rate. We've been going at 30 for the most part. It slowed down a little bit once we were looking at the waterfall over here, but other than that, it wasn't that big of a deal, really. This game reminds me a little bit of No Man's Sky. As you can see, there's also like little aliens here, but the characters remind me a little bit of cats. And I mean, this game was actually developed by the same developers of the game Stray, so I guess it makes sense. They made that game all about cats, so as you can see, we're passing next to the waterfall and the frame rate dipped down a little bit here. Nothing too bad though. The game seems pretty consistent in the frame rate for the most part, and given that it's open world, this is running extremely well on the platform. But I guess that due to the low poly graphics, that kind of helps in running this better. This is the very beginning of the game. I haven't gotten a chance to get off this planet and explore the other ones out there. As you can see here on the screen, there's a few ones there. I will eventually get back to this game and see how it performs once you're out of this planet. With this said, let's move on to the next game. The next game on our list is a horror game called Layers of Fear Legacy. This game was created by the Bluebird team, which is the creators of the Silent Hill 2 remake. And as you can see, this area definitely looks a lot like the Lakeview Hotel in Silent Hill 2. The game runs pretty good on here. So far we're going above 30 frames per second, which is really nice. I am not sure of the premise of this game, but I have always loved horror games, hence why I have a lot of horror games on my Retroid Pocket 5. This game seems to be running really good on the Retroid Pocket 5, but this is just the very beginning of the game, so as we progress through the story on here, who knows how that will change. But it is really nice to see that the frame rate's being pretty consistent. This is my very first time playing this game, so I'm really looking forward to explore what the Bluebird team has cooked here. I don't see any graphical glitches in the game, which is a very good news because a lot of times games load pretty well and run pretty well on the system, but there's a few glitches here and there. Oh, that's kind of creepy. I believe this is sort of like a slow game where you kind of collect things as you go through the story and you kind of have to figure out what happened here. However, it is really nice to see that a game of this caliber can run on here. Look at the textures, look at the quality of graphics on here, and the fact that it's not really slowing down, and the fact that the FPS remains steady for the most part. 30 plus is really nice. There are certain areas where I see the game jumps up to 40, 45. Like right here we're going 40 frames per second. The game gets obviously even smoother than before, but it's really nice to see that it doesn't really dip below 30 frames per second. This game seems to be extremely playable, which is really nice. Alright, on to the next game. The next game on our list is The Thing Remastered. This is also a horror game. So this is the very beginning of the game. You can see that the game is running at least 25 frames per second. Seems to be running pretty smooth. It took me a little bit to get these configurations right because the game in the beginning was running pretty bad, like around 10-15 frames per second max. Once we're inside, it seems that the frame rate improved a little bit better. This is my first time playing this game. I have not played the original either. I don't know if you can tell, but the game seems to be using the gyroscope of the Retroid Pocket 5. If I look up or down, the game is moving up or down, which is kind of interesting. This is one of the first games that I see that does that. Indoors, we can see that the FPS is going around 30 frames per second with a few drops, but as we're moving to an outside area, the FPS dropped drastically. Right here we were going at 18 and it was dropping down to 15 a little bit before that. Definitely has pretty drastic FPS drops, but nothing too bad. So I believe that this game, it is definitely playable on the Retroid Pocket 5. It seems that the FPS stabilized a little bit more over here around 22 frames per second, but it was that change when we were indoors to outdoors that caused a major drop. It's good to see that we can run The Thing Remastered on your Retroid Pocket 5. On to the next game. The next game on the list is another horror game called Tormented Souls. This game is inspired by Silent Hill and it has that old style retro camera. I had to play around with the settings a little bit to get it working because it just kept on crashing right next to that machine. I'm not exactly what to do here. It seems that we're stuck in this room. I guess I need a doorknob to open this. At the very least in this room I can see we have a pretty steady FPS of 40 frames per second. I'm not sure how I'm gonna get out of this room. I did not look any clues or anything beforehand, so I don't know how the performance of the game is going to be once I get out of here. It seems that there are puzzles that we gotta solve, so maybe the door handle is going to be inside this cabinet. It's definitely a demanding game because I can hear the fan of my Retroid Pocket 5 going on. And like I mentioned in one of my other videos, I definitely recommend to keep the setting for your fan on your Retroid Pocket 5 on automatic. That way your Retroid will handle that automatically and you don't have to turn it on and off manually. At the very least, it's very nice to see that this game also works on here. Who knows how it's going to perform outside of this room, but we can see that the FPS remains steady, so it's possible that the FPS will remain about the same once we're out of here. Alright, on to the next game. The next game on our list is Wise 10 Nordics. This game runs pretty well on the system. Actually, I was really surprised given the magnitude of this game. I don't think you can hear right now. The background music is playing. Let's see if you can hear it. But the major issue here is that there is no audio when it comes to talking to characters. The cutscenes where the characters are supposed to be speaking, there is no sound. You can hear the background music, which is not a problem. You cannot also hear when you're attacking monsters or during battle. You only hear the background music, and that is due to the driver that we're using to run this game. Depending on the driver, you may not be able to hear any music at all. I had to experiment with a few of them. Otherwise, you needed to run a different version of the emulator in order to get the sound working. But even then, it was not the best. You were still able to hear the background music, but you're still not able to hear the characters' dialogue or the sound effects as you are fighting. I was really looking forward to this game because I played Wise 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, and that was a really great game. So when they came up with Nordics, I was like, oh, that's cool because it's like a Viking type of theme. But unfortunately, there is no sound when it comes to dialogues, and I know I already said this quite a few times. If you don't mind the fact that you cannot hear the characters, you can still hear the background music, so the game is still technically playable. Other than those few minor graphical glitches that show up on the screen randomly, the game runs pretty good on here. There's a slight stuttering. I'm assuming that is due to the size of the area that the game stutters a little bit, but it's nothing too bad. So I'm assuming that the game is going to perform well for the most part. Again, other than the sound, and hopefully with new drivers coming out, this is something that might be fixed. On to the next and last game. The last game on our list is Sense, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story. This game seems to be running pretty well on the system, and for the most part keeps a pretty steady FPS, but honestly I feel that a lot of games that use a lot of 2D graphics and stuff are a lot easier to run on the system. Like a lot of visual novels run perfectly on here. This game, however, it has some sort of 2.5D, because once you get into the main apartments, which is where you're spending most of the time within this game, you end up basically switching directions, and that is more like a 3D area. You see as you're turning and making corners, the apartments rotate. I have not gotten that far in this game. I used to play this on my PS Vita and the frame rate was horrible. There was no optimization for this, but at the very least I am happy that I'm able to actually play this game on my Retroid Pocket 5 with updated graphics and obviously better performance. We're out here in the main street and I can see that the game's still performing around 59 to 60 frames per second. Right here the game used dropped to 26 and now we're back to 42. That was a really big jump. I believe this game may not be optimized as well as it should have been, and like I mentioned before, this game on the PS Vita run horrible, so I can see that this was still not fully optimized for that console that we shall not name. Regardless, it is still a playable game and you can still play this on your Retroid Pocket 5, which is nice to see because I actually didn't get to play this game at all on my PS Vita, so having it here is really convenient for me, so I can finally give this game a try. Well, with this said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time.